Hello everyone, how are you going? Welcome to Teaching in the US versus the rest of the world. Now, I've checked out police officers and how they compare between the USA and Canada before, but what about teachers? Because I've heard that the teaching situation in the USA isn't the greatest.
This is Anna. She just graduated from college in the United States. And this is Sophia. She also just graduated from college in Finland.
Oh, okay.
Anna and Sophia both want to be middle school teachers, but it turns out there's a good chance their experiences will be very different. So different that Anna is twice as likely as Sophia to leave teaching for good. That's causing a problem. The supply of new certified teachers in the United States is shrinking, but the number of public school students keeps growing.
I'm just even seeing that these graphs are not the newest. When did this come out? It came out 2 years ago, and I know for a fact that the situation definitely has not improved in those 2 years. My goodness, just with everything going on, it has just gone downhill even more, but I can only imagine just the projected students has also gone uphill a little bit. But honestly, the fact that a USA school teacher is twice as likely in this situation to be leaving the profession altogether, this is the profession that they devoted their life to. They went to college, they got the degree, they went to uni, they got the degree, whatever it may be. They devoted generally their early 20s to just achieving that goal, and then it just goes away. I mean, look, you certainly can't blame people for not wanting to take up the job, especially when you look at a graph like this and you go, okay, we can even see the projected nature of what's going to be going on. So do I want to enter a workplace where, yes, I'm in demand, but I'm just completely understaffed to the point, well, nothing's really working anymore. And actually, this is only referencing the new teacher supply, and so for goodness sake, over the last 2 years, the amount of people that have retired early or just retired in general, even though they were going to stay on, is just ridiculous. And so you've just lost so many. No wonder the school system is crumbling.
Massive teacher shortages.
Warnings about teacher turnover.
Educators call Colorado's teacher shortage a crisis.
So what makes Sophia stay and Anna leave? And how can the United States keep more of its teachers in the classroom?
Many ways, but not easy ones.
In the US, teachers work about 9.25 hours a day. That's an hour and a half longer than the average for teachers in other countries in the Organization for Economic Development, or OECD for short.
Okay, that's a hell of a list they've got there, but Australia, Austria, Germany, Italy, Japan, Spain, Sweden, the UK, for goodness sake, like all the top dogs are there, and so what are they possibly doing with an extra hour and a half on top of all the other OECD countries?
That's a group of mostly wealthy countries that economists often compare to one another.
Yeah.
Teachers in the US work more than 2.5 hours longer than their colleagues in South Korea, Finland, and Israel.
Wow.
There are some countries with similar teacher work hours to the United States, like New Zealand, Singapore, and the UK.
Oh, interesting. Wait, 9 hours, 23 minutes? Isn't that longer than the US? Huh, interesting. I wonder why. What are they doing with all that extra time, especially in comparison with these guys going from 6 hours all the way up to 9.5 hours, 3 extra hours, but that's 50% more of your day. I mean, if you just need it and you feel like you want to do it and you're being paid enough to be able to do that, then go for it. But that's insane that they're still even able to accomplish the same things in 6.5 hours.
Teachers in Japan, for example, work nearly 2 hours more per day than teachers in the US.
What?
But in all of these countries, teaching hours are much lower. Of the 9.25 hours that American teachers work every day, they spend about 5.5 of those hours actually teaching. That's more than the OECD average, and significantly more than teachers in New Zealand, the UK, South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. Teachers in these countries get more time for planning, grading, and collaborating with each other.
Oh, okay then. Wow, that's a massive difference then. To go from, well, like they said, Japan being all the way up at 11.5 hours. That is a long, teaching day, if nothing else, if you want to call it that. But then to actually have just way less face-to-face time is a massive difference. The amount of planning that actually goes into lesson planning to actually run an effective lesson is huge. And so if you're spending, 3/4 of your day with face-to-face learning, that is incredibly taxing. And then on top of that, you have to be trying to lesson plan, but you just run out of time in your day, let alone Japan, for instance, which spends 50% of their time planning. Massive difference, and you can really see the results, I think, in the entire workforce.
So do all those extra teaching hours translate to better results?
Somewhat.
Students in the US score slightly above the OECD average on the PISA exam, which tests 15-year-olds all over the world in reading, science, and math. But they score lower than students in countries like Finland, South Korea, Japan, and Singapore, where teaching hours are much lower. If we look inside Anna and Sophia's classrooms in the US and Finland, we'd see Anna teaching an hour and a half more per day than Sophia. Anna also spends more time planning lessons, grading student work, and leading extracurricular activities.
Oh man, I am fairly interested to know where do they get all of this data from, because to be saying that someone that does a 12-hour day compared to a 9-hour day, compared to a 6-hour day, and the fact that they can accomplish everything within their respective times is honestly very impressive. I mean, it does start to make me wonder if this is self-reported times or not, because that could majorly skew the results one way or another. I mean, for goodness sake, the USA, they didn't even really include grading and all those things that are definitely going to happen, but are they just not part of the school hours and so they're not included, let alone writing report cards and all those kind of things, in comparison to maybe Japan just includes it all, and so I wonder how that entire thing could be different maybe.
But those extra hours aren't necessarily reflected in Anna's paycheck. If you compare Sophia to other people in Finland with college degrees, she makes about 98 cents for every dollar that they make.
Okay.
That's on par with the pay ratio between teachers and college graduates in similar countries. But Anna and other American middle school teachers only make about 65 cents for every dollar that their college-educated peers make.
Oh man, to just be going from the OECD of 88 cents, New Zealand is actually surprisingly low of 88 cents, but the UK 92, Australia 94, let alone the absolute top dogs of 98 cents and even up to $1. Like, that is incredible that they've managed to even just make that as a system work. As for goodness sake, can you imagine, I don't know, an engineer just going, oh yeah, I'm fine with just accepting 2/3 of what I'm worth, or even just a lawyer, a doctor, all of those just high-end degrees that are actually worth a lot to the entire community, just going, 65 cents to the dollar, thanks.
Still, as politicians in the US never tire of pointing out, we spend
more per student than almost any country, I think.
Than nearly every other country in the developed world.
But that figure varies a lot by state. New York spends twice as much as California on each student. Mississippi spends less than half as much as Alaska. And American schools generally spend a lot more on security and other non-instructional costs than schools in other countries.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even considered the amount of just almost wasted money because of certain cultural influences and things like that. That is insane. I mean, I really don't understand why New York is so high. 22.5, if you want to call it that, $1,000 a year, was it? OECD spending per pupil 2015 to 2017. What is the USA? Is that per person, or is that per person for their entire schooling career? Probably. Definitely, hopefully not per year. Geez, that's a lot of money going out the door. But like I was saying, why is New York so high at 22.5 grand? It's more than double Australia, double Germany, double the UK, double virtually everyone by themselves, even double Denmark almost. Especially once you look up the top and you go, hang on a second, if it's a federal budget and Mississippi only getting 9 grand, why are New York getting 2.5 times that at 22,500? I mean, I can only imagine that there would be a reason for it. I mean, whether or not that reason is even valid is an entirely different story, but maybe it is just population or outcomes or transportation or something along those lines, because where is all that money going?
Plus, if you look at the share of its national wealth, or GDP, that each country spends on education, you can see there are plenty of countries spending a bigger share than the US.
Interesting. I mean, none of these numbers just blow it out of the water. Obviously, Denmark at 7.6 is creeping up there, but you know, Australia at 5.3 compared to 5 is basically the same. The one that is the most surprising to me is the fact that Japan gets away with 3.6%. How are they managing that? Especially as we already heard that their teachers are working 12-hour days, and so that is insane. I mean, Germany as well, just to be spending less than the USA as a percentage is also incredible, just given what they're kind of renowned for as well. I mean, I was just wondering if there was some sort of economy of scale coming into it, considering the USA obviously is the highest population out of anyone there, but then Japan is certainly no slouch, like 130 million or whatever, but then Australia is only 28, and so between 5 and 5.3, that's nothing. And so honestly, I think that is just one of the major sticking points for the USA. You know, you go out and spend 5% of the GDP on education, that's fine, but then what about the 10% on the military? You know, you just take some of that money and just double teachers' incomes, go from 15 grand or 20 grand up to 40 grand, then you're just going to be having such a better outcome because people actually feel valued.
There's one other difference between Anna and Sophia. When they're asked whether people in their country value teachers, 2 out of 3 Finnish teachers say yes.
Wow.
But just 1 in 3 American teachers agree. There are a lot of reasons why teachers like Anna leave the classroom. But if the US wants to keep more of them around, we might want to take a few pages from Finland's book.
And honestly, it's not even just taking pages from anyone's book, it's just about respect and, like they said, valuing the actual position, both monetarily and just culturally. As look, you could sit here all day and just argue the fact that 5% of the USA's GDP is just a boatload of money, and yeah, that's definitely true. We already saw that they spend a lot of money. Let's say in New York, $22,000 per person is a lot of money. It's not a small laughing matter. But then we see here just 65 cents of the dollar, you're only getting paid 2/3 of what you are realistically worth in comparison to so many other professions. And so like always, there is no blame on the teachers whatsoever. Yes, you might have the odd just rotten egg, and that just has to be dealt with in its own way, but my goodness, those teachers work so hard and just get nothing out of it. And so yes, it is a very complicated matter in terms of actually going about addressing it, but my goodness, starting with just paying people more, taking some of the budget and using it more efficiently would definitely go a long way, because it is incredible when all of a sudden someone actually feels valued within their job or within their life and so many other aspects. They actually just put so much more energy in what they're doing, not time. They already spend enough time doing what they're doing, just actual energy, and I feel as though that is what the USA's teaching entire system is just lacking. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I'm going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the YouTube algorithm things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you are watching, then make sure to go check out any other ones I've done. Also, make sure to go check out the original video down in the description below, or hey, maybe even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.